In December 1943, the Saab 90 Scandia was conceived over a dinner conversation between two men, Ragnar Wargren, managing director of Svenska Aeroplan Aktiebolaget, and Carl Florman, director of the Swedish Airline Aktiebolaget Aerotransport. By the time Saab delivered the first production aircraft in October 1950, 7 years had passed. 18 aircraft were eventually built. 12 years after that first delivery, it was effectively over. The last commercial Scandia flight happened on the 22nd of July, 1969, operated by the Brazilian airline VASP on a domestic route. Of the 18 Scandias ever produced, 17 are gone. One survives outdoors in Bebedouro, Brazil. Its paint faded, its airframe deteriorating in the open air of the Eduardo André Maharrazzo Museum of Weapons, Vehicles, and Machines. That is the complete production and operational history of what Saab intended to be the DC-3's successor. The story of the Scandia is not really a story about an aircraft that failed in the market. It is a story about an aircraft that was never seriously given the chance to compete in one. And the reason it was never given that chance came from inside Saab itself. In late 1943, Saab's design office had been watching the trajectory of World War II with commercial clarity. The Swedish Air Force had kept the factory busy, but everyone in Linköping understood that military demand would drop the moment the fighting stopped. Wargren's dinner with Florman was a business decision dressed up as a conversation. Saab needed a peacetime product, ABA needed a modern short-haul airliner, and the Douglas DC-3, reliable and beloved as it was, had been flying since 1935. 8 years was a long time in aviation. There had to be improvements to make. Project CT, which stood for Civil Transport, was formally launched in February 1944. The lead designers were Bror Bjurströmer and Tord Lidholm. The brief was specific: twin engines, short to medium range, capacity for 25 to 30 passengers, and modern enough to justify the investment over a fleet of second-hand DC-3s. The structural configuration they chose, a low-wing monoplane with fully retractable tricycle landing gear, was a direct response to one of the DC-3's most visible anachronisms. The DC-3 sat on a tailwheel. By 1944, that was already becoming dated. Tricycle gear improved forward visibility on the ground, reduced the risk of nose-over on landing, and made loading more straightforward. The Scandia was all-metal except for its fabric-covered rudders, designed for 4 or 5 flight crew and between 24 and 32 passengers depending on seat configuration. Wargren wanted a type certificate under American FAA rules from the start, not just Swedish certification, because without it, no export sale was credible. The prototype, registered SE-BCA, made its first flight on the 16th of November, 1946. The pilot was Claes Smith. The flight lasted 20 minutes. The aircraft flew well. Full control retained down to 110 and 115 kilometers per hour, a single-engine handling characteristic that Smith and subsequent test pilots consistently noted as better than what the DC-3 offered at comparable speeds. What the prototype did not have was enough power. The original Pratt & Whitney R2000 engines were inadequate. The 3-blade propellers needed replacing with 4-blade Hamilton Standard units. Spring tabs had to be added to the rudder and elevators to reduce control forces. The Scandia went into a hangar for 154 hours after that first flight, came back out, flew another 700 test hours, and the specification changed to the Pratt & Whitney R2180E twin WASP, a 14-cylinder radial producing 1,650 horsepower per side, with water injection capability raising that to 1,825 horsepower when needed. It was the only civil application the R2180 ever found. Its one other use was in a prototype military helicopter. On the 20th of April, 1948, ABA signed a firm order for 10 aircraft. Saab sent the prototype on a promotional tour of 11 European countries in August of that year, 23,115 miles, 123 takeoffs and landings, one flight with Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands at the controls. Airlines from across the world visited Linköping to look at the aircraft. The type certificate from Swedish authorities came in June 1950. Deliveries to ABA began in October 1950. And then, at exactly the moment Saab needed to be building Scandias, it stopped building Scandias. By the way, if you're into stories like this, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and there's a lot more coming. The Saab 29 Tunnan, the flying barrel, as Swedish pilots called it, was a swept-wing jet fighter that first flew on the 1st of September 1948. It was technically remarkable, the first Western European combat aircraft with a swept wing after World War II, built around the de Havilland Ghost turbojet, fast enough and agile enough to hold its own against anything flying in the early 1950s. The Swedish Air Force needed it. Cold War pressure meant they needed it immediately, in quantity, without interruption. Between 1950 and 1956, Saab built 661 Tunnans. That number tells you everything about what happened to the Scandia. The factory floor in Linköping could not run 2 major production programs at the same time. Military contracts in Sweden were not discretionary. The Air Force's demands were described at the time as heavy and insistent. Saab's board made the decision. Tunnan production took priority. Scandia production moved to Fokker in the Netherlands, and residual assembly work continued there through 1954. That transfer was not a commercial strategy. It was a factory scheduling decision that effectively ended any realistic chance of expanding the Scandia's order book. When you move production of a new airliner to a subcontractor in another country because your own facility is occupied building jet fighters, you are not running a serious civil aviation program. You are finishing an obligation. SAS, which ABA had by then merged into, forming Scandinavian Airlines system together with the Norwegian DNL and Danish DDL, took delivery of its Scandias and put them into European short-haul service. The aircraft performed. Its handling was clean, its low-speed characteristics were genuinely better than the DC-3 by measurable margins, and crews who flew it reported no significant mechanical difficulties. The cabin offered 4 breast seating at a fuselage diameter that gave passengers more room than the equivalent DC-3 configuration. The maximum cruise speed was 280 miles per hour, against the DC-3's typical 170 to 185. The service ceiling was 24,600 feet. On paper and in practice, the Scandia was the better aircraft. 2 Brazilian airlines, VASP and Aviation do Brasil, ordered 6 aircraft between them. The prototype was converted into a private executive transport for the Brazilian industrialist Olavo Fontoura. That brought total production to 18, and Fokker closed the line in 1954. The Pressurales 90B variant that Saab had planned, which would have made the Scandia genuinely competitive with the Convair 340 and Martin 404, was never built. The cost and complexity of adding pressurization to a design that had been conceived without it made the economics unworkable for an order book of this size. The Scandia entered service at exactly the wrong moment. During World War II, the United States had built thousands of C-47 transports, the military version of the DC-3. When the war ended, these aircraft flooded the civilian market. Airlines looking to expand could purchase proven, reliable airliners for a fraction of the cost of a new aircraft. The Scandia may have offered better performance and greater passenger comfort, but economics mattered more than improvements. For a small airline in the late 1940s, the choice was straightforward. A surplus DC-3 came with worldwide parts support, mechanics already familiar with the aircraft, and years of operational experience behind it. The Scandia, by comparison, was produced in tiny numbers by a manufacturer with no established international support network. Convincing airlines to pay more for a better aircraft became increasingly difficult. SAS quickly realized the aircraft's limited commercial future. By 1957, it had sold its entire Scandia fleet to VASP in Brazil. There, the aircraft found a second life on domestic routes, operating across a country where long distances and limited infrastructure made reliable air transport essential. VASP eventually became the world's only major Scandia operator, consolidating all 18 aircraft into its fleet.